Okay, we'll move on to item 3 on our agenda, continuing with our inquiry into post-traumatic stress disorder treatment for veterans. I'm very pleased to be able to welcome certainly one very familiar face to us here in Wales and across the UK, Simon Weston, OBE, patron of Talking to Minds. Also with him are Robert Paxman, Chief Executive Officer and founder of Talking to Minds, Ian Pitchford, trainer and therapy provider from Talking to Minds, and Neil Loughborough and Nicholas Cowan, also of Talking to Minds. Welcome to you all, gentlemen. We're very grateful for you attending our evidence session here this morning, and we're also very grateful for the information which you've already provided in written form to the inquiry. We've heard a little bit about your work from the previous witnesses, but it would be helpful if you can give us just an overview in a nutshell, really, about the work of Talking to Minds. I don't know who wants to start. Yes.
Okay. About 7 years ago, I was diagnosed with post-traumatic stress disorder. Went through the NHS and a couple of charities for help, and I didn't find the help there that was required. I didn't get well by using those, interaction with those forms of therapy. So I went out and basically spent several years trying to find a solution to my problem. And I found a guy called Mick Stott, ex-PT Corps, physical training corps, who developed a program around neuro-linguistic programming, timeline therapy and hypnosis originally. Very quickly I lost my symptomology of PTSD, very quickly.
Right.
I was so, if you like, shocked by this that I decided that I was going to train and find out how the whole process works. So over the period of the next couple of years, I then trained with Mick Stott to find out how the system worked. And then we've recently set up and started the whole charitable organisation. So that's been going about 3 years now. So the whole programme has been running for about 6 years. We've now designed further talking therapies specifically for veterans. And it also translates to other groups now because we've gone for the worst case studies, if you like. And what we're doing is getting fantastic results. So we're continuing to do more of it.
Excellent. As someone who's been a witness on Bob's journey, we met for the first time probably about 3 years ago when he was undergoing his, maybe a little bit longer than that actually. We were doing our master practitioner training together, and even over that time, the difference in him was just staggering, absolutely, colossal, and hence the birth of Talking to Minds.
And obviously we've got two individuals here who have benefited from Talking to Minds and continuing to benefit from the work of Talking to Minds. Do you want to share from your experience just how Talking to Minds have helped you on a personal level?
Hi everyone. I did 23 years in the army, and you've heard or you've got case notes there on the individuals, but mine is not dissimilar. And I went through cognitive behaviour therapy, and I also went through the psychiatrist side of life. Within the armed forces, there is very much this stigma with mental health, and it continues to be a real stigma. And they try to hide it as best they can, that people are suffering. And in fact, I was told to pull my socks up, get on with life, or get kicked out, which is an incredible thing to have to be told when you've witnessed or been involved in things that you have been involved in within the armed forces. When I come to Talking to Minds, after all the other therapies failed, and I was on very high doses of medication, I could only do part-time work, and I went to Talking to Minds. I went on a practitioner's course first, and it was amazing. The changes in me were amazing. But at that time, I stayed on my medication. It was only when I went on the change course, which was specific to me, that I decided that I'd come off all my medication, and I have been clean now. I take no medication whatsoever, other than pain medication for my spinal injury. So I am completely clean of antidepressants for the first time in 21 years.
And how long did it take to make that transition through the treatment process for you?
And for me, the first process was 5 days practitioner's course, where I got an insight into what it was about and everything else, and how to deal with different issues. 2 days was a change, but I decided to stay on medication. It was only later on that when I went back on the change course that I decided that I wanted to come off the medication. I wanted to be able to think clearly. I wanted to be able to take in all the learnings and go further forward with what was happening to me. And I come off medication on the course, on the first day of the course.
Wow.
It took about 4 weeks for the medications to become completely out of my system. And I have no requirement for any medication whatsoever now.
It's amazing. It's amazing. And did you want to add anything, Neil, in terms of your experience?
I joined Armed Forces in 1991, probably as a result of this man here, after knowing what he went through in the Falklands. I joined as a medic, had a very good career in the Armed Forces, and when I came out, I was given the choice on the day that I'd made the decision to actually be discharged. I'd been subjected to 3 months of being at the Duchess of Kent Military Hospital, or faced going back to Kosovo the next day. So I obviously went for a medical discharge because the stigma would have been such that you just would not be able to work in the medical sort of field. So obviously I had to come out of the Armed Forces. When I came out of the Armed Forces, that wasn't just coming out of the Armed Forces. I lost everything from my home to my family to everything. I soon found myself on the street. Now, I had 10 years of treatment through various agencies. Combat stress were fantastic with me, actually. They gave me a diagnosis for post-traumatic stress disorder, which was confirmed. However, the one comment which stuck in my mind the most was that they thought it would be contradictory and wouldn't help me to actually undergo any further treatment with combat stress because it would actually worsen my condition. And because I was a medic in the Armed Forces, the actual environment that I found myself in would have been conducive to that which I would be treating the patient in a medical reception station, and therefore it was actually making my condition worse. You know, I thank combat stress for the help they gave me, and it's just unfortunate that wasn't going to work for me. Early this year I went on a course with Talking2minds. In the background I was still under the Trauma Health Service in Lancashire, which is quite a pioneering type thing under a guy called Dave Sanford. I was very apprehensive of whether NLP treatment or whatever Talking2minds was going to work. Very apprehensive. Medical.
NLP, sorry.
The NLP techniques they use in Talking2minds.
Neuro-linguistic.
Yeah, sorry. So I apologise for that.
It's all right. We use lots of abbreviations as well.
I try to steer away from. So yeah, I was apprehensive before I went on it. I can tell you now that after 4 days of treatment with Talking2minds, it's a bit like coming out of the cinema after watching perhaps your favourite movie star and thinking, oh, fantastic. I'm a bit more cautious than probably most working from the medical side of things. So I had the Trauma Health Service run DRM assessments in the background. I got a letter in front of me which confirms they now discharged me from their service because they've made considerable improvement and I only have a mild form of post-traumatic stress disorder. Talking2minds have enabled me not just to give me a coping strategy or mechanism, but to deal with my own post-traumatic stress disorder. And the onus is on them actually helping me to deal with it. No money or words can ever sort of, passionately say how thankful I am to these guys, but it's amazing. I had 10 years of, really, really sort of very nice people, all meaning well, and then in 4 days to be turned round. I have the assessments, the DRM assessments. I haven't got a clue what they mean. I don't propose to tell you I know what they mean, but I can tell you one thing. I feel a lot happier. And my son, he said, in his words, he said, Dad, I'm really pleased to have you back. So now I'm a single father with my son, and we're living happily in Longridge near Preston. And I just wish other people get the opportunity like this.
Thank you very much indeed for sharing your stories. Veronica, Helen Mary Jones.
You state in your evidence that the resettlement arrangements are only in place for those with more than 6 years' service and that many veterans do not have any opportunity to resolve any problems that have arisen as a result of their service. What help do you believe should be offered to people leaving the armed forces, and particularly those who may experience or may be at risk of post-traumatic stress disorder? Happy for any one of you to start.
The simple fact is, what needs to be put in place is the correct screening methods. And then there needs to be specific training programs or treatment programs for every individual. Everyone's an individual. We don't fit in boxes. I never fitted into all the mental health boxes of the past, and exactly the same for Neil and other people. We don't fit in boxes. We're humans. We're all different. We have different emotions and different things that affect us. And so therefore, ensuring people are screened correctly, ensuring people are debriefed properly when they come back from theatre, ensuring the whole family as a unit is supported. Because once the family breaks down, then there's going to be more of a problem on that person that suffers. So it's not just about the mental health side, though it's very important, but the family can suffer from the mental health side as well. And there needs to be that support on both sides. So there needs to be a better, more well thought out system that presently exists. I've heard on the radio about Dr. Liam Fox and this telephony system. I work in a telephony world for NHS Direct actually. And I actually find it very difficult how they're going to get that to work. Because if you start chunking someone up and then they're on the phone talking about their emotions, how does that nurse or that practitioner at the other end of the phone interact with that person? Okay? The other problem that comes from that is every call that's taken has a KPI, the key indicators. They have a benchmark. Nurses will have 12 minutes to deal with that patient. I've had nurses go on improving work performances because they've been with patients for longer, because they've not hit their benchmark figures. I've had nurses crying because someone's done a countdown 1 to 10 that they're going to commit suicide if she doesn't help them. And she's had to stay on the phone for an hour and a half, 2 hours. And she's been given a really hard time. So whatever they put in place, it has to be realistic and not just a little plaster.
Can't deal with those issues over the telephone.
I want to accept the fact that any large organisation, in order for it to be able to offer a level of support, there's got to be a level of almost uniformity in order to get those the economy of scale out of what they do. But as Nick says, we've all served in different environments, we've all experienced different things. There was different things happen to us on different days, and sometimes they were sustained, sometimes they weren't. And so when people come to leave, the ability for them to be able to choose things that are going to help them in order to make that transition. And also, very often, a lot of the therapies you see and a lot of the courses that you go on, for those that are lucky enough to get some kind of resettlement support, they're a do-to process rather than a do-with. So you end up sitting on the course, you end up having things happen to you, you end up getting given stuff. And fundamentally, there used to be, I think, a World Health Organization advertisement about, I can give someone a fish and they can feed their family, where, I can teach them how to fish and they'll feed their family forever. Well, a do-with process encourages people to be able to develop strategies to go on, to be able to deal with whatever in life. And I quite passionately believe now that actually, Neil and Nick and Rob and myself and all the people that Talking2minds have touched have mechanisms now not only to deal with their PTSD, but also lots of other things that face them in life, around building self-confidence, self-esteem, about re-employment, a whole host of stuff that face people that that leave the armed forces. And in turn, then, hopefully, for some of those people, stops the spiral. We have quite a strong link with a number of charities involved in prison, and the statistics are freely available with a number of armed forces people that are in prison, and helping people have that level of confidence and self-esteem, and giving them some kind of debriefing mechanism and support that's tailored to them. I fundamentally believe is key to what we need to achieve.
We've asked other witnesses this, some witnesses have said to us that there were other countries where the kind of debriefing and the support that people get when they leave the forces is much better than what's available to people leaving the armed forces in Britain. Do you have any sort of experience of other countries which we might take a look at and say, well, perhaps they do it better there?
The Americans obviously do better in the fact that they accept that mental health after combat was a much more serious problem. We in Britain actually started the research into that. We handed all the research to the Americans. They took it on. Vietnam became a real problem for them, hence the term going postal, because a lot of it was due to Vietnam veterans. They took it far more seriously than this government. When I was in hospital,